I'm here with Luke Wadsworth, and we're in Melbourne, Australia, and we've just had a chat. Very cold Melbourne, actually. We've just had a chat about Wadsy's professional sports history. When I say history, he's still an elite athlete right now.
Still going.
Yeah. But I thought it was worthwhile just like unpacking kind of Wadsy's psychology and how he kind of thinks about his sport, because really it's all about the process, and it's all about how he thinks and what he has to deal with being an elite athlete. So I want to hand it over to Wadsy to tell you guys a little bit more about what he does, what sport he's a professional at, and sorts of stuff he's achieved, because it's pretty extraordinary. So you want to tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
So, as I said, Luke Wadsworth. I'm an elite gymnast, a sport that is very interesting. A lot of hours, a lot of time. I'm from a young age, so I started gymnastics when I was 4 years old, training all the way since then. So I'm now 27, so I haven't stopped. I guess the whole journey, such a young age, getting those hours is probably one of those things that separates us from a lot of sports. A lot of people sort of find out, for instance, if you use one of the general AFL, that sort of stuff.
That's Australian rules football.
Australian rules football for everyone. So the elite side is sort of happens when you get older. Whereas especially for female gymnasts, we've got to start sort of deciding we're training for the Olympic level at around about 10. So I started just in a little rec club, wanting to learn to do a backflip. Thought it'd be pretty cool. Still a good one to bust out at parties, but and then moved on from there. So when I was 10, I got accepted into the High Performance Centre down here in Melbourne, and it's been a journey since then. Some of my highlights, all over the world. So all my times being overseas is pretty much for gymnastics. I got my first representing my country, first competition when I was 15. That was over in Germany for OB Cup. Just that feeling of getting the green and gold, like nothing else compares. So I've been to Japan 3 times. One of my biggest comps, best times of my life was Commonwealth Games in 2014 Glasgow. So hopefully most of the people, not apart from the US, know where the Commonwealth Games is. I've been to 3 World Championships. That's competing as a senior international, and then a lot of stuff as a junior, going overseas competing for around the world, competing for Australia. Locally, in Melbourne, I've been pretty lucky to have a good career. This is going for my 9th Victorian Championships in a row, which is, I think I got the record this year actually for 8 in a row.
Wadsy's being super humble right now. He's saying he is the top of the state 9 times in a row. Like, he's aiming for 9 times in a row is what Wadsy's saying. Do you want to tell everybody where you ranked last year in the country?
So last year's Australian Championships, I was lucky enough to finish first. I had a pretty good year. It was one of the most successful Australian Championships for myself and any other gymnast. In gymnastics, we've got 6 events. So you got floor, pommel rings, vault, P-bar, high bar. Good one to YouTube those. And I was lucky enough to win 4 of those and place in the other 2. So that was one of my big goals, actually, winning Australian Championships. So I was lucky enough to achieve that last year, and then continuing to go for the next Commonwealth Games and World Championships in 2018.
That's massive. So that is the best gymnast right here in the country, which is awesome. But I think a really interesting thing that we just had a chat about was, okay, so you're recognised as one of the top athletes in the country in your sport. How do you deal with the pressure of living up to that for yourself, right? How do you navigate that pressure? What do you do in an actual comp? What's that like?
So I think that was one of the hardest things I've probably dealt with, actually. Pressure it's a very interesting thing. A lot of people say the pressure from outside, the pressure from inside. For me, it was a lot of the pressure inside. So a lot of people say, obviously, going internationally, competing for your country, that's got to be the most pressure situation. You got to perform. You're competing against for your whole country. For me, that wasn't what it was for me. It was the pressure I put on myself when people knew and I was expecting to do well. So I was sort of saying, competition in Victoria or Australia, people that I know, people that I thought would expect me to do well. I put too much pressure on myself, I guess, and trying to deal with that. Going, I'm known, I'm expected to do well. Especially gymnastics, you got your peak periods. You got to build up for competitions, learn new skills, put new skills in a routine. Trying to do those and having those outcomes that aren't so great if you have a fall or something like that. Try not to put yourself down. I think that was the hardest thing for me mentally. So I started doing a lot of visualization. So thinking, if I can do this in the gym, I should be able to do this anywhere. Doesn't matter who's there, doesn't matter where it is. So really trying to think, all right, I know I can do it at the gym, visualize that, and not worry about where I am or who's watching. So a lot of visualization and then a lot of consistency. So I think with anything, if you're consistent, you know you can achieve that. So if you're 90% person in training, if you can visualize that and get back to that state, I think that's super important. But just the self-pressure was the thing that was the hardest for me. Knowing in Australia that you are ranked in one of the top 3.
Right?
Yeah. So you got everyone that knows you, and you go there and you're like, well, if I don't perform, then people ask that why. I think that was the hardest thing for having those comps that everyone has. You have a bad comp and people go sort of like, what happened? And that was a different thing for me. They're getting the bad comps and going, well, what happened? And then me sort of saying, well, what did happen? Like, why am I going bad? What happened in that competition? And it's just the process.
Yeah, exactly.
So
do you want to talk about that process orientation?
Yeah, so especially in gymnastics, we have new skills. So skills are something that might take 2 years to learn, and then you've got to put them into a sequence of 10 skills. So you might be able to do that skill by itself 90% of the time, and then you've got to put it into a routine. And the first competition you try that sometimes doesn't go so well. You're trying to get that routine to get to a potential score on that new skill to be ranked in the world stage as well as just the Australian stage. So the first time you do that, it's not going to be realistically. Sometimes it's not going to be great. So you've got to do it. You can't have your first time doing this routine at a world stage. You want to be prepared for that. So those first comps doing it sometimes are not very consistent, and you just got to trust that that's why they're there. You're doing a routine that's ranked at the top in the world, not just going, I can do this. This is the routine I've done for the last 5 years. Try to push the boundaries. And I guess that must be for most sports as well. If you're trying to keep pushing, you can't expect that consistency to be there straight away. Something you got to just trust and go, you know what? I've fallen, but I achieved the skill. Or I fell at the dismount because I did 3 new skills that are harder. And that's that process you got to trust in. That's why you train. That's why you do all the hours. So then those big comps that you're ready and you can have the success that I've been lucky enough to achieve.
Man, that's super humble, because it's obviously not luck. Like what you talked about before, right? Like it's just like relentless.
Yes. Many hours. Many
hours, man. All right. So if you could run the clock back, you could talk to yourself when you first started in, I guess, professional sport. What would you tell yourself based on everything you've learned? Could be around process orientation, could be around visualization, but if you had words of advice for your younger self.
I think it'd be a few things. I think when you're younger, especially as a little kid, we're expected to. I was doing 30 hours a week from 10. It's very hard if you come. I was saying my first nationals, I came, I think, last or second last. But I was 3 years younger than everyone else. So when you're a little kid, you look at the result and go, I'm the worst. But you just got to trust that, look, your coach knows what you're doing. You're putting the numbers there for a reason, and just trust that, look, there is an end goal. Your first comp at 10 years old is probably not the end goal for your career. Same as putting those new skills in. Just keep trusting it. And then the visualization stuff is something I've just sort of, when I've been a senior. And just trusting that scenario. When I was saying I was a junior, my first comp's getting there, and you're just in awe of, well, these are the best guys in the world, and you sort of get lost in what you're meant there to do. Like, if you do your best job, that's the best you can achieve. So not worrying about what they've scored, you go, my best is 14.3, for instance, on an event. You go, I want to perform a 14.3. And just going, I know I can do that in training, doing what you're doing, whether it's your visualization, your prep, and just focusing on that, not looking at the guy before you going, wow, that's the best guy in the world. And then you stand up and you go, oh, now it's me. And like, don't compare yourself to them at the time. You go, you're there for you, you're there to, right? Exactly. So, and that's, you just got to, the more comps you do, the more you can do that, it's going to get better all the time.
Awesome, man. Okay, cool. If they want to check you out, if they want to check out Wadsy, if they want to check out the stuff you do, potentially any of the skills you do, any business ventures you're doing now, where can they go?
So a few places. If you YouTube Luke Wadsworth, you can see some of my Commonwealth Games routines.
It's on YouTube.
Yeah. That's really nice. I get a little bit embarrassed when people say I saw it on YouTube, so don't mention that to me. My Instagram, Luke Wadsworth or Wadsworth it. That's where you can see some of my routines and stuff like that. And then my ventures is calisthenics training. So if you look at that on Facebook or Instagram, there's a lot of footage of me doing some strength stuff. And then the business venture that I'm trying to build my career in gymnastics into sort of that bodyweight movement sort of stuff.
Awesome. So, as you guys can see, Wadsy is not only an accomplished athlete, he's done a whole lot in his sport, but he's super grounded and he's super down to earth, man. Thanks so much for joining us.
Awesome to see you again, mate.
Awesome.